Shelley Pace will give us a summary of what Black history means to our local men after this presentation has concluded. The men that are not participating, please have a seat in the front rows here to support our men that are participating. First, we'll have Brother Riley Taylor. Since Brother Taylor happens to be affiliated with the real estate industry, we'll have a local real estate hero.
Morning, people.
Morning.
Well, I'm thinking more so of Black History Month, probably, and I'm going to start with the consistent of, discrimination, slavery, overturning Reconstruction, Jim Crow, segregation era. But I wanted to make sure that we recognize that how persistent we were through faith and perseverance. I'm reminded of Hebrew 11. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. By faith, Noah being divinely warned of things not yet seen. By faith, Sarah herself also received strength to receive seed. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called. By faith, Moses, when he came of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Now, we celebrate Black History Month, which was established as a Black History Week 100 years ago, to commemorate Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And now we celebrate it for the month, proudly. I want to talk about fair housing, 1866, 1964, 1968. As a realtor today, I would like to reflect on perseverance, faith through years of discrimination which brought the development of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which expanded on the housing funding program, which was meant as a follow-up to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which, while the Civil Rights Act of 1866 prohibited discrimination in housing, there were no federal enforcements. Adopting the Act of 1968 expanded on the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1866, prohibiting discrimination concerning the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, religion, and national origin. And as a realtor, and also a local realtor who also is a realtor, Mr. Tooman, who's proudly a member of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is called NARES, was founded in Tampa, Florida in 1947 as an equal opportunity and civil rights advocacy organization. The organization was for African American real estate professionals, consumers, community in America. The real estate profession, the purpose of the NARES is to ensure enhanced economic improvement of its members, the community at large, the minority community in which it serves. Although composed principally of Africans in America, the NARES organization embraces all qualified real estate practitioners who are committed to achieving our vision of democracy and housing. And of course, we have persevered through faith. Other significant involved legislation achievement includes the creation of HUD in 1964, the Voting Right of 1965, and the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977, and establishing affordable housing goals for Fannie Mae and Fannie Mac in 1992. There has been an update to each of these laws and implementation of many associate news laws, regulation, and presidential order to the present. Like the song said, we come this far by faith.
Our next presenter will be our very own Joey Martin, and he's going to talk about a prominent young person that we all should know.
Today I'm talking about George Hofstadter, an African-American male that has made an impact in our society. At just 17 years old, George Hofstadter is an app developer who uses technology as a solution in addressing racism and violence. Hofstadter is a senior in California high school. He discovered his love for tech when he was 13. Since then, he created Connect the Dots, a platform to help black students at predominantly white private schools navigate racism on their campuses, and launched his own tech company called George Hofstadter Technologies at 16. His latest app is called Cop Stop, which is designed to protect people from police brutality and educate young people about best practices for staying safe while interacting with police. The app also includes an option to film interactions with law enforcement, which George believes can serve as a viable alternative to body cameras. Now, this young man saw the need and the importance of keeping our young African American teens safe. In this society now, it's just chaos. If a cop on duty sees a young teenager driving too slow or even just walking down the street, they'll see him or her as being suspicious. Many teens and younger have the potential to change the world, but can't at the rate these teens are getting killed or harmed. That's not the way God wants it. God wants peace on this earth, not craziness. God so loved the world that he gave us his only son for peace, not chaos. Our future must be protected, not killed. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As I try to do a musician, of course, as many musicians might do, we improvise. So I'm going to go a little bit off script. My selection is not native Savannah, not male, but female. And I wanted to make sure that as I was searching for someone local, I came across Sister Rosetta Thorpe. Yes, people know. Yes. And I found her story to be worth telling. She's not native Savannah. Her family moved to Chicago later on. But Sister Rosetta Thorpe was born March 20, 1915. She was an American singer, songwriter, guitarist, and recording artist. She attained popularity in the 1930s and 1940s with her gospel recordings that were characterized by a unique mixture of spiritual lyrics and rhythmic accompaniment that was a precursor to rock and roll. She was the first great recording star of gospel music and was the first gospel musicians to appeal to both rhythm and blues, rock and roll audiences. Later being referred to as the original soul sister and the godmother of rock and roll, she influenced early rock and roll musicians including Little Richard, Johnny Cash, Paul Perkins, Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, and Jerry Lee Lewis. Thorpe was a pioneer in her own ability to play guitar. She was among the first to popular record with artists using the heavily distortion on her electric guitar, preceding the rise of electric blues. Her guitar playing technique had a profound influence on the development of the British era of music with British invasion coming in the 60s. In particular, a European tour with Muddy Waters in 1964, where they made a stop into Manchester, which is cited by prominent British guitarists such as Eric Clapton, Chet Beck, and Keith Richards, all who admire her playing and what her contributions to the world of rock and roll and blues was. However, she wasn't just your blues musician. Signing to Decca Records in 1938, Thorpe became a virtual overnight sensation. Her records among them, which was Thomas Dorsey's Rock With Me and This Train, were smash hits, and she quickly began performing with accompanying mainstream superstars, including Cab Calloway and Benny Goodman. She led an almost schizophrenic existence, remaining in the good grace of her core audience by recording material like Precious Lord, Beams of Heaven, End of My Journey, while also appealing to her growing white audience by performing rearranged up-tempo spirituals, including Didn't It Rain and Down by the Riverside. That she was able to and was willing to cross the line between the sacred and the secular she coined the phrase that she was able to perform music in the light, music of light in the darkness, performing these type of selections in nightclubs and concert halls with big bands that played behind her. Tharp pushed spiritual music into the mainstream and helped pioneer the rise of pop gospel. Kirk Franklin was the first one to do that. Her unique music left a lasting mark on more conventional gospel artists such as Ira Tucker Sr. of the Dixie Hummingbirds, and while she offended some conservative churchgoers in her forays into the pop world, she never left gospel music. In 1944, she released that very popular selection, Down by the Riverside, which was selected for the National Recording Registry in the U.S. Library of Congress in 2004, which noted that it captured her spiritual guitar playing and unique vocal style, demonstrating clearly her influence on early rhythm and blues performance. And the site of her influence on many gospel, jazz, and rock artists, Down by the Riverside, was recorded in December 1948 in New York City and issued on that label, Decca. Tharp's guitar style and blended melody-driven urban blues with traditional folk arrangements and incorporated pulse and swing, which was the precursor to rock and roll. Little Richard referred to the stomping, shouting gospel music performance as his favorite single when he was a child. In 1947, she heard Richard sing before a concert at the Macon City Auditorium and later invited him to be on stage with her. It was his first public performance outside of church. Following that show, she paid him for his performance. So that kind of lets you know about the legacy of what she actually did in bringing forth to this American music format that we know of, blues and rock and roll, which had its ties and its home in gospel and spiritual music. This has been one of Sister Rosetta Tharp's lasting legacies, and I think that it was worth being brought to you and explained to you. Thank you.
Man.
Okay, before I get into Black history, first thing I want to put on the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because there's no history on this earth better than what God teaches. So we need to always remember that, whether it's black, white, whatever the case may be. We know we have contributed down through the years of many things that many people are benefiting from today. And I just want to just go back into the beginning when God said, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And when he created the heaven and the earth and all those living things that's in it, the things that we are to benefit from, he created me and you also. So with the forefathers and our forefathers and mothers and the things that they're going through, have gone through, is benefiting us today. That's why when I bend my knees and pray, I go back to the yesterday. Because there ain't no history on the face of this earth that better than God. He already told us the things that was written in books, the earth cannot hold. And you can find out in John, the last 2 chapters of the book of John. But I just want to briefly go over a few things pertaining to male and females inventors. When we look at Frederick M. Jones, we know what he did, air conditioning. And we go back to Frederick M. Jones again, we're talking about thermostat control. He figured out a way, and instead of just having ice and trucks and buses and cars and things that we have today, those things were done by him. Those was his God-given talent that the Almighty gave to him. Now, we look at W.A. Richardson, the baby brother. How many do that? I'm not going to get into details on a lot of these things, but and when we look at Henry T. Sampson, the cellular phone. And then we go on to Alexander Miles, October 11, 1862, the elevator. Paul L. Dowd, the mailbox. Those simple things. Now, who have got credit for those things that our people invented and created, that God gave us creation to do? Look at it. T.A. Carrier, the stove. And even in the old days of the typewriter, there was 2 people. Someone named Burgess and Marchand. This was done back in April 7, 1885. We talked about the typewriter. Now, but I also want to talk about some of the black females. What we don't realize, black females did as much creation back in yesteryear as the men did. When we look at Patricia Bath, she invented this item to remove cataracts lenses from your eyes, for the eyes. When we look at Marie V. Benton Brown, the home security system, utilizing television. Joan Clark, the medicine tray, we still use today. And when we look at Kathleen DeCarr Garrett, the siren, the horns, and the light indicator. When we look at Joanne Harder, the keyboard stand. When we look at Rudette Jeter, the digital toaster, got those numbers on it. And when we look at Anne Margin, the plastic balls. And we look at Natalie or Love, the teapot. You guys remember the teapot from yesteryear? There it is right there. And when we have Maxine Snowden, the ring. Now, I just wanted to mention just a few. But now my mind goes back to my teacher that I had, my English teacher. Name is G.C. Group. I did not want to go in that woman's class. She had us to do the creation. Now, many of you probably familiar with the creation. I still could stumble through that creation today, and it helped me. And I didn't realize then, trying to not go to her class, it had helped. So I'm going to try and still see if I can remember the creation. But most of all, let's think about who wrote that creation. Now, we know God did this, but when we come to man, we're talking about the man that wrote the creation, James Weldon Johnson. And he said that God stepped out on space and he looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God can see, darkness covered everything. Blacker than 100 midnight down in the cypress. Then God smiled, light broke. The darkness rolled on one side, the light still shining on the other. And God reached out and took that light in his hand, and he rolled that light around his hand until he made the sun. And he set that sun ablaze in the heaven. The light that was left from making the sun, he gathered up in the shining ball, flamed up against the darkness making the night with the moon and the stars. If that between the darkness and the light, we heard the word. I'm going to stop right there. Because that's it.